Okay, we all set to go? John, Kim? All right, please join me in pledging allegiance to the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, hello to everyone here in virtual land. This is the August 9th meeting of the Town of Canandaigua Planning Board. I'm going to forego the introductions. I think everybody knows everybody. So let's skip that, but for your purposes, make sure you know where the emergency exits are, and to remind the people on the board, make sure you remember where the emergency exits are, and proceed if there should be an emergency of any type. First item on the agenda is privilege of the floor. Is there someone here or out there that would like to address the board concerning an issue that's not on the agenda? Not hearing any, we'll move on. We have one public hearing tonight. I can attest that it was published in the Daily Messenger on August 2nd. And so that has been done legally. We have no continued public hearings. The new public hearing is for Venezia and Associates, 5120 Laura Lane, and the Douglas representing Corey Westbrook, owner of property at 4118 on Linda Drive, requesting a single stage subdivision approval to subdivide a parcel that is currently 5.311 acres to create a lot 1 of 3.247 acres, a lot 2 of 1.023 acres, and a third lot of 1.04 acres. I will open the public hearing, and as a preface, this property has been the subject of many reviews. I just want to make sure that we understand what we're looking at tonight. Back in May of 2021, there was an application that was submitted to the town, and it was held in abeyance by the applicant pending receipt of revised plans at our June 8th, 2021 meeting. We then reconvened that application on September 13th, 2021. And that application was summarily withdrawn, I believe. Correct. Okay. So that application 21050 essentially was off the books. And then back in October of 2021, a new application was submitted. Excuse me. No, that was withdrawn back in January of 2022, the 21050. So that was withdrawn. And then on April 12th, the PRC reviewed and the planning board on May 24th reviewed a new application from Mr. Westbrook. And that was held until a lot line adjustment occurred. Okay, that lot line adjustment has occurred, my understanding. And then a new application for the same property was submitted back in July 22049, essentially replicating what had been done previously, recording the lot line adjustment. And I guess my question to you, so tonight we're looking at 22049. Chris, is there any action that has to occur on 22030 that is sort of hanging in abeyance? Does it have to be formally withdrawn, or due to lack of activity? Is it just goes away?
It can stay there so long as the applicant consents to its, continued staying there, continuation, lapse of or extension of the time within which the planning board has to act.
Okay, let the record show that the applicant or his representative has stated that the planning board and the town no longer needs to act on application CPN 22030. And we are now here this evening to talk about CPN 22049, which is the subject of the public hearing. And I guess I'll call on the applicant to make a presentation as to what's involved.
For those of you who don't know me, I'm Greg Westbrook. I was sat in your seats from 1991 to 1993. in the planning board. And I'm here tonight representing my son, Corey Westbrook, who owns a property at 4118 Linda Drive. Our engineering services company is Andy Associates. Anthony is here tonight. You may have heard one of the other calls. I can't remember how. It was farther back than June for sure, or July. It was probably either early this year or later next year, where Rocco spoke for us also in a session. It's on video. I'm gonna go find it. I did take my time today to find that session, but so it's Rocco and Anthony working on that together. And quite simply, we're here seeking a single item. Is the approval of the submitted subdivision application. That's simply what we're trying to do here. And there has been a lot of round and around and around and around and around. And I'm not putting the blame there. I'm putting the blame more here than I am with you guys. But I just want to kind of clean this thing up tonight, and hopefully we can do that. I'm here to listen. I'm here to take notes of what you guys feel about the plan. I am prepared to use my professional engineering team here, individual here, and we'll do so at the technology or the questions beyond my capabilities. I do have to warn you, I'm a civil engineer by trade. That's been the crisis of my whole life. Okay, so then, anyways, so we are asking for questions that you have. I also want to make a statement that there are no variances requested here.
Can I ask just to refresh my recollection?
Sure.
You've got this piece and you're subdividing 3 lots. Is this one? This one is a separate lot.
That's a separate lot.
Ashley's house is up there and your house is on this one?
That's correct.
Okay. Okay. We're creating these 3 lots. Got it.
1 lot.
Wait, you said 1 lot 3?
It's 3 lots.
This,
Oh, we're just talking
this
about
is
this,
the
right?
overall property.
Yep.
Okay,
And then this would be the parent parcel.
okay, gotcha. Sorry.
Make sure you're straight. Okay, let's see. Anything else to add?
Just to
Oh,
answer questions.
Okay. Okay, the lot line adjustment that occurred. Anthony, you want to show, so it's clear, I think it was across the.
What
back.
happened was this lot was Corey's lot, original bunk that.
Yep.
So what we did was we came across here, created this one, these 2 lots with a lot line revision, and then we decided to subdivide that.
Both lots owned by Corey Westbrook. Yes. Separate deeds. And now we're gonna, the 1 lot, we're going to subdivide it into 2 potential buildings. Correct.
And since my lawyer's not here tonight, I can tell you I'll blame him. The deed was never filed. That was-
Oh. Sure, you can take the.
You gotta take the-
All righty, I'll tell you, I'm gonna change things around a little bit tonight. I know there's some, Mr. Cook's on the line. And he had written to me and to the town provided a lot of information, a lot of it going back to 2021 regarding this application or a similar application. And Mr. Cook, why don't we hear your concerns before the board starts its deliberations?
It sounds good. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, sir.
This is Lawrence Cook, 4125 Linda Drive, property owner for over 50 years. From my recent email to Chuck Euler, Town of Canandaigua Planning Board Chairman, And I quote, regarding 4118 Onalinda Drive, Corey Westbrook subdivision application CPN 22-049. This property bordering Onalinda Drive on the steep entry curve is unique from other subdivisions which you have granted for the 4096 and 4118 Onalinda Drive and other properties in the town on private driveways in two ways. First, it's filled with natural springs, wetland, discharging water on a continuous year-round basis. During storm events, this property discharges water onto Onalinda Drive, into adjoining properties. Pictures have been provided, and via a culvert pipe flowing under County Road 16, exiting beside the south edge of 4037 Onalinda Drive Boathouse into Canandaigua Lake. Al Kraus, 4095 Onalinda Drive, in his June 9, 2021 attached letter, has a very telling picture of one such storm event. Kevin Oveni, in his 11/12/21 letter to the planning board regarding the previous CPN 21-050 application, which was not approved, stated, there are a combination of issues that exacerbate the flooding and water quality issues along this private drive. It is important to try and maintain and enhance the existing areas that provide some level of water quality protection during any additional development. Placing homes on these lots would require substantial fill and rerouting of the springs that should be taken into account by the planning board when determining if these lots meet all the subdivision requirements. Permanent post-construction stormwater controls should be required for this development. This undersized road and drainage system is negatively impacted by any additional impervious cover or removal of vegetation. I move on to the second area. Secondly,
Mr. Cook, if you could wrap it up in about 2 minutes, I'd appreciate it.
will do. Secondly, lots divided and had houses built with driveways onto Onalinda Drive steep entry curve with hundreds of vehicles coming in and out past them. The stage is set for serious vehicle accidents. Note, Onalinda Drive is the only access for 19 properties for entry and exiting. There are also 2 long-term rentals on the 4118 Onalinda Drive property. And on other properties, there's 3 soon-to-be short-term rentals. While there is a 30-foot deeded right-of-way, the pavement area is only 13 to 14 inches wide when 20 feet is required per section 105, 102 of the purpose of the zoning law ordinance. Vehicles cannot pass each other in the steep entry curve. That presents an excellent opportunity for the planning board to demonstrate they're serious about their strategic objective for 2022 to discourage development of environmentally sensitive land. The planning board shall require that the land shown on the plate be of such character that it can be used safely for building purposes without danger to health or peril from fire, flood, drainage, and other menace to neighboring properties or the public health, safety, and welfare. Finally, I find it very interesting that the 822 email from Chief Brown of the Cheshire Fire Department is contrary to the 2017 input from Canandaigua City Fire Chief Robert Case and Jim Hecker, Town of Canandaigua, and I quote, "Fire truck access up Onalinda Drive is limited and impeded by the narrow single lane, sometimes impassable conditions. It does not meet town minimum standards per Jim Hecker, former Town of Canandaigua Highway Superintendent, and does not meet New York State fire standards per Bob Case, former Canandaigua Fire Chief. There is no homeowner association to provide for maintenance and
Okay,
update."
Mr. Cook, I gave you more than we normally allow for people to testify. I think we got what your concerns are. I have them primarily being the natural springs and the water flow off the property, as well as the condition and access using Onalinda Drive. First of all, I did read your email and I read everything you sent to me, and I appreciate you sending it to me. It was a lot to read. Some of it was dated, but in any event, it was interesting to read. I do feel that, or I do know that tonight we're talking about a subdivision and creation of lots. We're not talking about any construction. Essentially, nothing will change tomorrow. What the property is currently today. It's only if and when the applicant sells the lots or develops the lots himself that we would go through a site plan review. And a lot of the issues you have regarding stormwater and control of the natural springs and water flowing off the property would be handled at the site plan review stage. And I think hopefully if we do our job right, it'll actually be better up there after some storm drainage is put into the project, and that's currently lacking now. The other thing you had to do with Onalinda, and you had stated that Mr. Schopenhauer's letter quoted a section from our code, section 105-102. I, for the life of me, could not find it. Our solicitor, our attorney looked for it today. There is no such section in our either our subdivision or our zoning regulations. I don't know what your attorney was looking for, but
I believe he's referring to, I believe that was the code section designation in 2017 or 2016. I believe that the current code is 220-2 purpose of our zoning code. And I believe it is similar, if not identical to the.
Yes.
In that letter.
okay, so it does require a 30-foot deeded right of way and the pavement area.
No,
20
the
feet.
purpose portion of it. Sorry,
Okay.
sorry, Chuck, I didn't
So
explain that correctly.
there's no such requirement that the roadway be 20 feet.
I do not believe so, but now I'm gonna just double check it.
All right, well, again, Mr. Cook, thank you for your information. I think a lot of the concerns you have are the same concerns I have, and I think the other board members, and we'll certainly work toward resolving them as we proceed. Should the subdivision be approved, and we proceed into site plan approvals at a later date.
No,
The majority of neighbors up here, Chuck, these concerns, and over the years, many letters of opposition have, going back to 2005 subdivision requests have been made. So it's just not Lawrence Cook, it's the neighborhood. And this is a continuing and ongoing expansion of subdivision and houses, the property. So it's a common concern for the total neighborhood. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, anyone else from the public like to address the board regarding this application? If not, we'll turn to the board in terms of its review. Board members, comments, questions, concerns?
Talking about the drainage. That's my number, drainage.
Okay.
And so maybe, let me ask this question. I know lots 2 and 3, the new lots that are being created, those are the lots in question, especially around the drainage. And it's, as I understand, at the point of subdivision, we're not talking about the drainage issues. We're not mitigating anything. We're just saying we're gonna cut up these pieces of property on a piece of paper to say, these are the boundaries. For the 2 new lots, as I understand, there is a plan to build new single-family homes there in the future at some point. Is that accurate?
Well, I would suffice it to say that that's probably accurate.
Okay,
And we're not sure of the house size. We
okay,
did go a step further, and I think this was shared with the board. Anthony and Rocco kind of did some what-ifs examples. And so they figured out how we're gonna get the water gone
mhm,
and how we're gonna make sure that we address this properly.
mhm,
And we did that in the spirit of willingness to share.
mhm,
At the same time, I've got this, I'll speak to the board, I'm not speaking to Mr. Cook on this, that we have a few gentlemen and ladies that are upset for whatever reason it may be, I'm not sure. And I don't want to get them mixed up. I'm done getting things mixed up. I want to go step by step by step.
I think that's a good point, Chuck, if I could. I'm gonna recommend after the board's discussion and the applicants answering the questions of the board go step by step through 174-15, the planning board findings. I think we should just talk about each one of them. The second sentence there is, regardless of whether or not development is proposed, planning board decisions regarding subdivisions shall be accompanied by findings regarding whether or not, and then it goes through each one of them. One of them relates to drainage, so maybe it would be useful for Anthony and Lance, our, professionally licensed people, to say whether or not the drainage issues can be mitigated.
mhm.
I think there's probably
Mhm.
situations where no matter what you do, you're still gonna have stormwater problems.
Mhm.
Anthony, can you speak to that? Is there a possibility that the stormwater, the drainage issues can be mitigated if there was development on this too?
Yeah, absolutely. We did create a smaller sketch plan of what, a small building footprint would look like. That was also the lots were a little narrower, we widened the lots, and it's the biggest iteration. Once we get in there and someone does buy it and the house is designed, and we get a good understanding of what's there, and there will be calculations that need to be done downstream. So when we know what that house is, what those runoff counts are, what the impervious areas are, these houses will be. We do stormwater management on the lake with lots that are half the size, and we do 25-meter retention.
Do you see any potential bars to the stormwater management on these?
I don't see any issues really. I mean, if, like what Chuck said earlier, we could, with the development, we have an option to we have the ability to make it better.
Lance, is that?
Instead of the status quo, it just falls across and nothing's done.
What I would say is, moving forward, because the lots are residential in nature, because independently, if they came to you one lot at a time, technically, they're under all the thresholds that would require them to do any stormwater mitigation. Obviously, what I'm thinking is going forward, due to the concern, the board, when the time comes to approve the subdivision, whether that's tonight or not, you would likely impose a note to be added to the plans requiring them to do some form of mitigation on the site. What I would suggest is that we could consider requiring no net increase, meaning there would be no negative runoff. So the value of runoff running off the site as it exists today would either be the same or it would decrease as a result of the construction going on. That's similar to what is required on any project that triggers that stormwater requirement threshold for, if it's residential, it's more than 5 acres. If it's commercial, it's more than 1 acre. It doesn't mean that they have to do that same type of facility. It just means that we're simply saying no net increase in runoff. it would have to be the same as the pre-existing conditions or better. Which I believe is what we're talking
I'd go so far as to say that we overcompensate, seeing we have an existing problem now, okay? That there'd be an overcompensation for control and runoff, that it'd be less than what it is now, because right now there's a problem. And if we can require that, I think that should certainly be part of this development. I look at these two building lots as hopefully being an improvement over what's there now in terms of stormwater. We still have to talk about the road, but I could definitely see, given the right kind of design, that we can do and you can approve that you can provide that mitigation that Chris is talking about.
Can I make a comment there? Chuck?
Sure.
Okay, so I agree with what you said. That's our goal for sure. And I just wrote down no net increase and no worse. Are two of the defining points we're trying to get after here. And you just asked for a improvement, right? What percent? It's a game of, let's define the boundaries and then let's. see
I
if we can
think
get there.
it would be based on what you can physically do on the property. I realize you can't build a basin on the property or something like that, but certainly I think there's techniques that can be used to not only control and divert the water, but also, absorb. And I know ground saturation is tough out there too. Is there a wetlands on the property? There is not. Okay. See,
Nothing.
a couple references about a wetlands.
Well, that's a whole different topic again about.
There's springs. I mean, there's springs, but there's
Nothing that's
okay.
category into your level.
That answers one of my questions.
The other thing I can remind the board is the water came not only of what we've done on the hill, but what's done on the 100 acres from the Round subdivision from their retention pond. So I want to own it, but I don't want to own it.
I do, but not related to drainage.
Excuse me, Kevin Ovani has stated.
Lawrence, please, only when you're recognized, please. The board's deliberating right now. Thank you, sir.
Bob has a question.
Bob,
Mr. Chairman.
Bob?
hey, guy, excuse me. Hey, this, I think it's really for Anthony.
I think you just muted Bob.
We're muted all the time. There,
Can you hear me now?
yep.
I'm sorry.
It-
It's changing on me, sorry.
Being
Sorry,
sensitive.
Bob.
Let him do it. Can you do it?
Hello?
Yep.
Yeah.
Talk quick.
Okay, Anthony, why is your survey different than the one that I think your father did in 2017? Mainly that the lot line doesn't go to the middle of the road like all the other ones on Olinda. It seems like it goes right to the edge of the road, but it doesn't go to the middle like all the other ones do.
Because when we're dealing with areas and things of that nature, the town regulates to the right of way. So we want to make sure all our areas are accurate to the right of way. So that's why the areas are a little bit different. Whenever I do something in the town of Canada, all the ownership is the center line, just like it's on like a county road, unless there's an appropriation or something of that nature. It's always to the center line. But the town, when we're doing like, we need to have like a 5-acre lot, we do it to the right of way, so we make sure that that's what the town regulates.
Is there actually a right of way here, Anthony?
There is a private right of way, and that's what we went to, and that's what we're following is the private right of way.
So he's the owner of lot number
They would own
two.
the center line, because everybody owns the center.
The red line is
That's
property
that's
line.
and that's the west side
Let's say right away line.
of the private right of way. That is on. It's no different than the west side of Little Cheshire Road. It's a public right of way versus a private, but that's why the areas are, they're more accurate when we're talking right of way, not center.
Anything else, Bob?
No, I guess not. I will add one more thing though, Anthony. And if you're saying that, why is the most northern point to the middle of the road on your site?
Do you mean that little triangle?
Yeah,
I can adjust it. because that's what was in the deed when we originally did it. So that was Rockland's original one, and then I changed these because I wanted to make sure that all the areas were accurate and no one did catch us up with minimum area requirements.
Thank you.
Back to the board, anyone here?
You started to say that you didn't want to inherit and solve the other problems related to the Morel subdivision. Can you elaborate on that?
I'd have to go back to the board, to the code enforcement people, whoever is this.
Well, maybe you could pull up
What's it?
Encore and take a look and see without the overflow. noise.
So there was a retention system that was designed that's not working as designed. Is that how I should interpret that?
I'm not gonna say that.
Yeah.
I'm just saying that is
I mean, I know there's been problems with it in the past.
with the
I don't know.
enhancement of the problems. I've owned that property since, not my son did, I owned it. I bought it in 95 or 96. So ahead of Morel's full integration of the solution set they provided to us on their subdivision process.
And the problem's gotten worse since that time. Is that?
I'm not saying that. I'm just saying that I'm not gonna be the sole person responsible.
I recall reading,
Water runs downhill, guys. Right? So my job is to mitigate what's on my land.
an analysis Kevin did, 3 or 4 years ago of the Morel basins. And he said they were all functioning as designed. But I think the issue is there always was water even before Morel coming down over that hill.
Right.
And combined with the springs that exist on the property and combined with the lack of any drainage on Linda Drive, it just made a situation where the water would flow over the road down the County Route 16 across the road and throwing a storm like we had in 2017. And that's what Mr. Cook and his neighbor's pictures were primarily of that storm. And it gets bad. So, I think, again, there's a problem there. I mean, I was chairman of Drainage Advisory Committee, and that was one of the hot spots that we had. And in trying to figure out how we could fix it, we always thought that with the development of the Westbrook property, that adequate storm drainage could be put in that, control that water and even put into the road to get it down and under Westlake Road without causing flooding to Linda as well as Westwood. So anyway,
Is the water just flowing east to west across all the
More or
property?
less, the Morel's pond is.
Morel's relatively flat.
Morel's pond is roughly here, and there's.
Oh.
Comes down, there's an actual swell that just kind of runs through here, and that's.
Oh, so
That
it's
was
not
the
coming
next
across
thing.
the whole thing, it's coming.
No, it does not, no, Morel's is, it's, the discharge is along that south
Yeah.
line, and that's what it was.
Just onto
That's the
Linda.
way that it was designed and, the overflow.
I don't think it's ever surcharged. I think the choke down in the basin is working as function, but the concentration of the outfall allows that water to come across the Westbrook property and down to Linda. So I don't think it's ever gone over the banks of the basin, even in 17. That's what Kevin said. So anyway, we got a problem out there. Let's not shoot at who the problem is, but
And here's the spirit. Chuck.
let's figure a way to fix it.
Right, exactly
All
right.
right. Anything else from the board?
I have just one
I yield to.
question for probably Shauna. That back lot that we're not talking about, does what we're doing here impact negatively any non-conformance of?
No, there's no non-conformities with that.
Okay. That was my last question.
Just a general, more of a comment than a question, to make sure that you're aware that subdivision, once it's completed, if it's approved, contains successional northern hardwoods, steep slope variation, scenic view shed, and residential lake district. You're aware of all those criteria.
We're getting acknowledgement from the community on the house we have on the hill that we on purpose did not cut any trees on purpose. And it cost us an awful lot more in the development of that lot. And then we lost a couple of trees as a result of being too close to pipes underground, but that's not what's moving my. I don't want to be seen on top of them. I want to enjoy the winter views.
And when I'm looking at Encore, is the deed issue that they were referencing to earlier, the reason that?
Yeah,
nothing
exactly.
aligns?
So the configuration you see on Encore isn't accurate and doesn't reflect the deed.
So is it
that was
because of
recorded.
previous subdivisions? So is this subdivision on subdivision? Is that what's happened?
There was a subdivision in
Subdivision and a couple lot line
17 or 18 that for the map.
For my daughter,
The
Or
map was,
Ashley.
the map was
Yeah.
approved, one of the maps was approved, but the deed transfer didn't go through. That's why I never. filed. So if you went to those properties, then there is a file map that represents this. It just, the deed transfer never was, so the
Never
tax
happened,
map
so the
never
tax
changed.
map never changed.
And
And
that has been taken care of.
and we're not creating a situation where we're going from a minor subdivision to a major subdivision because of that.
Yeah,
not the number.
Greg, was this all, you bought all of this at once
I owned all of it one time.
and it was all one parcel?
Mhm.
So the issue, Mark, is exactly what you raised. Could it be a major subdivision instead of a minor? That's a product of the actual code, which relates to the application. So it's definitely still a minor subdivision. There could be in a situation where what you just said, subdivision upon subdivision, a seeker segmentation issue. As a general proposition, you're allowed to do subdivision on subdivision. It's provided it complies with the zoning requirements of the code. From a unlawful segmentation under seeker, it would have to have been initially one action. If the plan was, when they brought the first sublot in for subdivision, to eventually chip off 6 other lots as a development, as a project, as one unit,
And that would have been-
united action, it would be unlawful segmentation. Lance,
Well, no,
it doesn't strike me as segmenting,
I was
but
gonna
maybe
give
you
you
have some insight.
2 examples of other agencies and how they regulate segmentation too. DOH has realty subdivision laws 553, which is 5 acres a lot, 5 lots or more, over a 3-year period of time. So technically, what that means is every 3 years, you could go through this process and be under their criteria.
Sure.
So it's a 3-year window for them. DEC has a similar rule that says you have, let's say, 3 or 4 lots under let's say each one's 1 acre, and by theory, we say the full lot's gonna be disturbed, and under residential, it's 5 acres of disturbance that triggers you in stormwater. So you come in with 4. Every 3 years, you can come in with 4 more. Technically, that grandfathers you in underneath their threshold. So those are the 2 type of agencies that have a similar review timeframes of a 3-year window, let's say. So that's just an example.
I'm comfortable just on the face of it, that it's not segmenting. I think Lance provided good examples.
I know that was a concern Kevin had back in 2017, that he sort of wanted to see an overall plan for the development of the property. Of course, that was before the scenic view shed overlay was applied, which limited the size of the lots to 1 acre or greater. So, and as far as the other thing to look at would be the application or applying the conservation subdivision, which doesn't really apply here because, again, we're 1 acre. And if you're just looking at individual lots, they're less than 5 acres. So it was looked at, it was discussed. John, for the record, you can say that it was considered, but it wouldn't apply to these lots. But at some point, Greg, I don't know what the grandiose plan is, for the rest of the property, including Corey's and yours, but maybe if you do have a plan at some point, bring it to us as a sketch plan and show us, okay? Because I think rather than coming in with 2 lots here and then 3 lots up there, and I don't know if, the other property, the large remaining property is ever going to be subdivided. I guess you're somewhat restricted by access, but it'd be much easier and to review and to consider stormwater issues. You can look at it in the big picture rather than just, sequential. Yeah, okay.
If your next one comes in, you got a cul-de-sac in there, we're gonna call it a development.
Mark, have another issue. You done? Okay, maybe I'll whet your appetite for some of the things I have. Just for the record, let me make sure these lots will have private sewer and water. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay.
Or should be, should
The
be
public.
incorrect. Of the public.
There's a bunch of utility.
I have extensive easements coming off of Westlake Road
For water?
for water, utilities, whatever they may need to be.
Oh,
Where?
It's
What? I don't get it.
So 15, there are utility easements that go across there that are already in place to have water. and
Oh,
sewer.
that's what's, okay, sorry, yeah.
So there's enough space there to bring the utilities
To
to the two lots.
your lot line.
so you'd have two individual laterals, or you're running
Two individual laterals.
two separate laterals?
Yeah, you build it that way.
Okay. Is this property in the sewer district?
Yeah, because Corey's pumps up to Riley's Run, Greg pumps to Riley's Run, these have the ability to gravity now.
Okay. So we got public water and sewer, the an easement. Problem. Okay.
So the wind time easement.
We'll have to, we're probably gonna have to add 15-foot easement across the frontage of the lot. The northerly lot, so the southerly lot can get across that. But we did run some utility stuff in that last, if you saw that site plan kind of sketch, we showed that we could bring it in there.
Okay. I thought I saw somewhere in your documents that it's gonna be private, so, well, but, okay. I guess the elephant in the room is on Linda Drive. That has a 30-foot right of way. Is it subject or created via some sort of written document in any way?
It's a right of way, that's it.
Just handshake right away, or is it
No,
something?
there's a
that-
legal right of way, just,
Okay.
but it's just a right, of way, private right, of way, just to give access to the rest of the.
Is there, Chuck's asking, is there a written
Is there a written
right of way easement?
page and
document?
book number?
Yeah.
There's-
I think we had asked for that.
I believe.
I've seen it at some
Yeah.
point.
Have you?
Can
And-
you,
I can find it.
Okay,
It
was
might
that-
be in the deed. So,
I think it is.
I
in the
believe it's
deeds.
just in the deed.
And again, that's where they run to the middle of the road.
Okay,
That's defining separation between
it is.
east and west.
does
How
that,
do you,
It's a 15-foot of your size. so.
can you give the board information about how the road is maintained and expenses shared?
There's been a couple of occasions when they've been shared. But the issue traditionally is that it takes a year to get that process going. There's been no desire to put a homeowners association up there. I speak for more than 50% in that statement. Most of the time we get along.
How do people get up the road in the winter?
19,
How do they
19,
get up
around the curve.
with four-wheel drive vehicles? It's not plowed?
So let me give you some history. So I'm with the drive, right? I bought all this, I own that, that was main lights into the house. I bought going north, everything west of the roadway. I would sell some of those to the homeowners so they could have a garage across from their house. So that's why it's gotten chopped off. I agree with you, Chuck. It's not a simple subdivision plan. You see all the lines are straight and everything's basically happy, right? So I think it's a matter of record. I know it's a matter of record. That I'll be in here in 2 weeks to show you the subdivision for the other parts of my parcels. And that will become clear to everybody. At that point, I'm not going to say that I'll never develop again, but I will say that I'm not going to do it.
But so, Greg, somebody plows this road in the winter, right?
To do what?
Somebody drives a
We share the
snowplow.
cost of plowing. Everybody shares costs.
Somebody organizes
Yeah, the
it
cost organizes, it, we all pay her, and life's
on the honor system.
on the honor system.
All expenses are on the honor system.
All expenses on the honor system.
Okay. Hope you get along as neighbors. Yeah, we would like, I'd like to see that.
We've looked at, you and I have seen it in the past, but can you
It's
send
a
it?
very vague easement, there's no like maintenance agreement or.
There's nothing.
Okay.
It's just-
Access.
I think it says
Well,
along
that's
shall
not
have a right of
Does
way.
it restrict in any way who can use that road in terms of if two new lots are created? Will those lots have access to, I'm thinking of the Dugway
Yeah.
situation where we had to get permission from the other users of the easement, permission to put two more lots.
In order for me not to give you information that I'm not 100% certain of, I'm gonna suggest that you make a condition of approval that Anthony gives me that deed and I review and approve it. But I am almost certain that we had the same conversation the last time Greg was in here. And I looked at it and said, nope, there's nothing that prohibits it. I mean, Greg couldn't have
That's
done
what
it.
I was.
He couldn't have done this the
send a letter
last
to
time
the
because you asked the same question.
Dugway was-
and I
Dugway
also-
was a little
But I
different
also said that we've got to do something about Olive Drive. I mean,
Dugway-
that road's got to be improved. I think I said it then, I'm saying it now, and at some point, this road is, we just keep adding lots to it and with no consideration of
Well,
the safety and of the residents that use it.
well, there's a planning board issue about that. Is there access? Is there emergency access?
When we get into the-
Is it, does it comply with the subdivision and site development regulations? Then there's a private issue that Greg's honor system, eventually somebody's gonna say, hey guys, we gotta repave this. Or, hey guys, we need to make this wider because I've got a, tractor trailer and I live at the end of the road. So can we all chip in and, instead of being 30 feet, can we make it 50 feet? And that's a private issue between neighbors who share
Yeah, he's,
use, who share right of way. That the town
it's not motivated.
has no business doing, has no legal authority to. If we have a safety issue, if the road, if Lance says you add 2 more car trips a day to this road and it's gonna cave in, that's a planning board issue. If Lance says there's no way a fire truck can get up this road, we're not gonna give them any more lots. But so long as it complies with our subdivision regulations, they're entitled to a subdivision approval. And then when we get to site plan, then that they're entitled to that approval, provided they comply with the
Conditions.
code.
Okay, well, when we go through the findings, as you suggested, Chris, maybe we can, because I think
Yeah.
some of those findings, requirements are what we're talking about here. Other things that I have, we did, as far as access for emergency vehicles, we checked, we had a letter from Chief Brown regarding, he feels from a fire safety standpoint that his company could fight a fire if need be, emergency up on that road under its existing conditions.
Maybe I'll read it for the record since
Sure.
it just came today. We have a letter from the Cheshire Volunteer Fire Department dated August 8th, 2022, received August 9th, 2022, saying that Cheshire Volunteer Fire Department is adequately equipped to access the private road on Olinda Drive in the town of Canandaigua. Conditions are met and there are no issues getting emergency apparatus in and out of the private road, and there would be none posed by the subdivision of lots based on applications 2022-49 and 2022-50. Signed, Chris Brown, Chief of the Cheshire Volunteer Fire Department. Mr. Cook pointed out that that's different from another chief's letter. I don't know if they apply to the same issue or not, but I think we should at least make that a condition of approval to resolve that with.
Well, I think the other chief was City of
No,
Canada.
city.
City of
This is
Canandaigua.
Cheshire.
And that was based on, I thought you mentioned 2017 review.
That was a different, different time.
Different application, different project.
It was actually, I think it was 2007.
Thank you.
Okay.
So things change.
And related to fire safety, Chris Jensen, our CEO, supplied an email today regarding with this, if you remember with the Sarah Linda Hooker property, we required that she widen the road to 20 feet. And we wondered if that was a condition here. And fire code superstar, there was a question as to whether fire apparatus navigation on the existing drive could occur, and that's the chief's prerogative, and he's already mentioned that. As far as the fire code is concerned, only the New York State Code Council and Department of State variance boards can issue a variance to the uniform code. That being said, at this point, it is a subdivision, not a site plan approval. There are no proposed new dwellings or structures shown on the plans. Currently, there are 4 structures under the 5 structure threshold to require improved width roadway. The existing road is compliant for the existing number of structured dwellings per the site plan approvals they received prior to building those structured dwellings. At the time we received proposed site plan developments, code enforcement and town engineering will complete an official determination review of the proposed improvements. If a 5th structure dwelling is added, the determination will require fire apparatus code compliance to take effect. So I guess what Chris is saying, right now, there's not an issue, but potentially, I don't want to talk about what we're going to talk about in 2 weeks. But as far as this particular application, there's no fire code issues.
As an aside, if anybody's gonna be here in 2 weeks discussing other subdivisions on Island Drive, they should probably be prepared to answer the question, are there any other possible lots that can be created on Island Drive? For just as an example, if you tore down any structures, could you make that another lot? Are there any on the eastern side? I think that's gonna be relevant. If anybody's gonna be here on another subdivision.
Scenic view shed overlay, there's no issues there. All right, it's in the view
It
shed.
is absolutely, but the lots meet.
The lots meet the standards. Okay, how about the NRI assets evaluation? I know the steep slopes, but that's on the, are there any on the,
There's.
on the other West, Corey
yeah.
West?
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's
And
no
that's part of the
wetlands.
confusing piece on Encore is it does indicate that there are steep slopes on the current parcel, but that's why I was asking on the vote as well.
Within the red lines, Mark, is that what you're saying?
So just looking at that, then
Okay.
you've got a high percentage of successional northern hardwoods as well.
Got a couple
Okay.
of really ugly willow trees. You guys want to take those down there all yours?
Could we include as a condition that any NRI asset evaluation be done, and if any are found on the subject property that they be shown on the
On the site
plan,
Or on the plan.
since
and
there's
then
no
transfer.
construction proposed at this time, so that we know it going forward, that we can account for that if and when construction ever happens. We got no report or no response from the ECB. We were not required and did not get a response from the Ontario County Planning Board. MRB, Lance, you had items regarding the easements. And I thought that was your reference to an easement was the reference we were talking about in terms of the roadway. Did you have something else?
No, that was exactly that, and potential for utilities, which Anthony had.
Okay. And there's nothing, in the sewer and water was also, you were wondering how that was going to be serviced.
Potential for it.
Okay, we will require site plan approval for any new lots on lots. 2A, 2B, or 1A, 2B. So that's on the record. In our I features, we talked about it's a 3-lot subdivision. Would you just clarify other lands of Westbrook, that other property, specify Corey, please, if it is his property? Okay. You should have a note on the plan also that it is in the scenic viewshed overlay. That could be. Yeah, I went through the seeker. Was there anything in the mod 1 seeker that anybody saw? Issue I was questioning whether it had public sewer and water, but now you've stated this evening it does. So your response was correct there. There are no wetlands, which you responded accordingly. And other than going through the findings, anybody else from the board have any questions? Does someone want to walk us?
Yeah,
Chris, Sean, do you want to walk us through the findings 174-15?
yes.
Make sure that we address them.
Land shall be suited for the purposes for which it is to be subdivided. Regardless of whether or not development is proposed, planning board decisions regarding subdivisions shall be accompanied by findings regarding whether or not A, review of the proposal was completed in compliance with applicable procedural requirements.
Boy, I hope so. Go, spend enough time on
Better be.
Are you all comfortable with that?
it.
Yes.
I think we-
B, the proposal clearly and accurately describes the proposed lots as well as proposed development of same. Is that a fair statement?
Agreed.
I understand Anthony provided some hypothetical sketches. I think that gives you an idea on potential development while not actually proposing it. C, resulting lots are sized and arranged to allow reasonable development and use in compliance with existing town code requirements and the intent of this chapter. We have the zoning officers, zoning law determination, as well as the discussion that's taking place here tonight. I think we're all comfortable that it's in compliance with the town code requirements.
Yes.
And can you make a finding that it's a reasonable development and use? This is similar to other subdivisions you've granted.
Yep.
It is in with compliance.
Mhm.
D, subsequent use and development of the lots will not be unduly limited by easements, deed restrictions, or other encumbrances. Anthony described one easement across the front of lot 2A to get utilities to lot 3A. There may be some stormwater drainage easements, similar to what you've seen on other applications. Is everyone comfortable with that?
And if we get a copy of the access. easement.
Yes. E, proposed lots and development provide for 1, safe and efficient vehicular and pedestrian access. There is access via Analinda Drive, as well as it's just any potentially proposed driveways. But pending my review of the right of way, which I've reviewed in the past, I think you can comfortably say there's vehicular and pedestrian access along Analinda.
Let's say it's not making it, well, it's adding 2 more lots. I would say the current situation is somewhat precarious, but
Yeah,
is it making it worse?
safe and efficient, it doesn't say safest and most efficient or safer and more efficient, it just says safe and efficient.
Save the road lot position.
2, sufficient space for on-site parking, loading and unloading and similar activities. Right now, they're not proposing any of those. But I think we,
TBD.
yeah,
Yes.
but there's sufficient space on the lot to provide for those. 3, adequate emergency access. In your findings, you'll say Cheshire Fire, Volunteer Fire Department letter.
Between the chief and the CEO.
Mhm.
4, proper drainage in compliance with chapter 165 of town code and current New York State DEC requirements. Right now, they're not proposing any development, so they do have proper drainage.
I think we would make a condition that it provide controlled. It'd be no worse than what it is.
Right.
No, not increase.
Oh, no, you asked for an improvement.
Yeah, sorry.
Well,
You get
To
to
the
that
extent
condition,
possible.
decide how it's worded. Okay.
Wordsmith it.
did you, Mark, did you hear what Chuck said?
Go ahead and repeat it for me.
I just said when we get to reviewing the conditions, we can decide how it's gonna be worded in terms of no increase or over compensation or added compensation or an added decrease in the runoff. I'm looking for the right word. But our engineer.
Safe and sufficient water supply and proper sewage disposal. Apparently, there's public utilities there.
Mhm.
Proper access to other available utilities such as gas, electric, and telephone. Obviously, those easements will cover that. F, resulting development will have an undue negative impact on the safety and efficiency of the existing road network.
Undue negative.
Yeah, you have to make findings about that.
It's a double
We're
negative.
not saying
Yeah.
that's the case or not the case, we have to make findings about that. The maximum, again, we're starting with Onolinda Drive. It is what it is, and it's been what it's been for a long time. Impact on safety and efficiency of the existing road network would involve 2 potentially maximum of 2 additional single-family homes. Lance, can give you traffic counts and how much road usage that would entail, but I don't think that 2 trips changes the use of any, or 2 lots, excuse me, changes the impact on the road network or on Olinda Drive in particular.
Vital thresholds that would warrant any kind of traffic analysis to be provided.
Everyone hear what Lance just
I
said?
just said it's under all the thresholds that would warrant a traffic analysis to be provided, these, and it's just 2 lots.
Yeah, but again, you have an existing condition, it's poor, and you're not making it any better, but
But we're not making any.
incrementally making it a little bit worse.
Okay, well,
You also have to, one thing is it's only a small portion of it. Those that are at the beginning, there's only one driveway before those 2 would be. So it's just the beginning. It's not like those 2 are gonna add traffic up and down the road, just the entrance.
I would
There's
say
not a
with
lot
the
of traffic.
site development of those 2 lots, that I think we're gonna be pretty concerned about the frontage, in terms of improvements along the frontage, so,
Yeah,
okay.
I'm
So at
just
least
saying-
as far as those two lots are concerned, we're gonna get an improvement on with the site,
along the front.
maybe a widening, a gutter of some sort. Okay, so
gutter of some sort is probably gonna annoy the guy right there, 'cause the gutter along lot 3 is just gonna dump a bunch of water on this property. That being said, we'll leave it to the engineers. I want to make it clear, though, that this, the phrase I just said was, development will have an undue negative impact on the safety and efficiency of the existing road network. Undue negative impact isn't defined in your town code, but it's something that, you know, the New York State Planning Board system is set up for. That's a discretion that the planning board exercises. We talked about the existing conditions on Linda. Anybody have any thoughts about the undue negative impact, if any, on Linda and the existing road network?
Again, will have a incremental negative impact. But undue,
Yeah.
okay,
Resulting development will have an undue negative impact on neighboring properties. Now, we've talked about drainage, it seems to bother neighboring property owners. And at the very least, it won't increase the negativity. And we very well may determine that it will decrease. Are there any other potential negative impacts on neighboring properties? Need a little engagement, guys.
No.
Come on, Amanda.
Just think, I mean,
Smoke,
the traffic,
don't you smell?
you mentioned it's gonna be at the start of the road, so the neighbors up here are not gonna see a lot of increased traffic. Because it's the very beginning of the road, so as far as extra traffic for them, no. I don't think it's undue.
Okay. Agreed. Proposed lot layouts and development are designed and arranged to minimize modification of existing landforms, including rock outcroppings, hilltop lookouts, and natural contours. I think actually in this case, given the topography, you know, these being the ones closest to Linda, you've got the flattest section here. Anybody have any thoughts about the
Again,
topography?
if the final plans show any NRI
Right, that's
assets,
related to that.
we would know it then, and it would be taken into consideration with the subsequent site plan.
Actual layout.
Which is the answer to I. Proposed lot layouts and development are designed and arranged to avoid impacts to natural features identified in the NRI. Boom. J, proposed lots and development avoid, to the extent practical, negatively impacting culturally and historically significant features. I think we can cover that under seeker. K, proposed lots and development avoid encroaching on areas subject to periodic flooding, where avoidance of such areas proves impractical. Such measures as required in 115 of the code. Flood damage prevention will be taken to minimize the potential for flood damage to proposed improvements and adjoining properties. I think that's covered with a condition you're going to put in related to drainage. L, outdoor lighting shall be dark sky compliant. That will obviously be a condition of any site development. M, the subdivision design allows the continuation of agricultural practices on the balance of the site and or surrounding parcels and considers the effects such design shall have on minimizing the impedance of such practices. No agriculture here. The subdivision design follows the town's adopted site design and development guidelines, as well as the shoreline and ridgeline development guidelines. Lance, do you have an opinion on that?
The shoreline guides.
No, the other thing is
The site design.
site design.
At this point, subdivision, so no, there's no development occurring at this point. If there's no design criteria that'll be required of them at this point.
That's
Okay,
it.
thank you.
Sorry.
Thank you for going through that. Okay, any other comments from the board? Bob, you unmuted? No, okay. Don't want to forget you. Mark? Scott?
No.
Okay, just, I think we've gone over those. All right, I am going to close the public hearing. And
Wait, you got, hang on, oh, sorry. Before you do that, you want to ask if Mr. Sousa wants to say somebody else?
No, Mr. Sousa is a member of MRB group.
Oh,
He's shadowing planning board meetings, and so this is one
Oh,
that he chimed in.
good.
Well, that's the Matt Sousa from MRB group.
So MRB is not gonna charge us.
No, he's just shadowing.
we want his rate.
Okay, you learned anything, Matt?
Matt's sound asleep right
Yeah,
All right, good.
Our
All righty, hearing's closed, so let's move on to seeker, and let's take them separately. Seeker is an unlisted action. Someone give me a motion regarding seeker.
I will make that motion for seeker approval unlisted action for CPN 22049.
I'll second that motion.
Motion and second, is that the right date?
Is that Scott or Mark?
Is that Amanda?
I
That was
second.
Amanda and
Man and
Scott.
Scott.
Got it.
We got the right plan date on both these resolutions.
I believe so, that was the plans. that-
May 31st. Okay, I have a motion and second. Any further discussion on the seeker? If not, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. Move on to the single stage subdivision.
Lance, do you have any proposed conditions in addition to the four that you've already?
Yeah, let's do the conditions before we do the motion. Or suggested conditions.
Well, one is we gotta come up with a note. I believe the board is going to require a note be added to the plans. Along the lines of the site, the subsequent site plan application that comes before the board will be required to provide no net increase or additional stormwater benefit for all three lots associated with this subdivision. I don't know how, I'm not sure they, I believe it's the three lots that are before you that we were referring to, and therefore that's what the applicant has control over. And therefore, there could be a potential mitigation measure for all three lots associated with development.
As part of that, no net increase, and if possible, a decrease.
Net
I think,
decrease.
check.
That's up to you guys.
So let me make a suggestion. Why don't you say shall ensure a net decrease? And they're not gonna define a percentage. You can negotiate that when you go for site development stuff.
And that,
A
You know,
net
a net
decrease
decrease in-
cumulatively or
I don't think you can negotiate
per
that.
lot?
That's an issue for site development. It really. Because we don't know what's being proposed there. You know, the planning board's shouldn't take a position as to precisely how much and where it's allocated, but it's gonna be a net decrease. Maybe it's gonna be a 0.1% net decrease. Maybe it's gonna be a 200% net decrease. That's a discussion you can have with the planning board.
You're
when you go
likely,
for development.
you're likely gonna come in individual site plan. So it's gotta be per lot.
Any new development.
I think it's gotta be for the new development. But the decrease part has gotta be, I think what my understanding, what I was trying to say is, and that decrease not only from your development, but whatever additional runoff from the lot that's controlled by the applicant comes off the site should be considered as part of that runoff.
I was just gonna say, you know, when you apply for anything, it says all the holdings of the applicant. Now we know who the applicant is and how many holdings he's got right there. If the water is coming across the western parcel, it's gonna be included in the solution. And Anthony's gonna come up with a solution that saves you money and, you know, makes the planning board happy and helps the neighbors, right?
Well,
Sometime in the
it might
future.
not- It might not be. It might be something that depends on who buys it. and-
Because you
That's
could
true.
sell the land.
Yeah, it could not be a wet
Maybe
market
it
thing.
wouldn't, it might not
Yeah.
necessarily.
Whoever it's gonna
Yeah.
be
Professional
Yeah.
design.
is gonna deal with that issue. That's my recommendation to you. I wouldn't get into
No, I wouldn't get
specifics,
into the
but
weeds.
insist
Just a
on
net
a
decrease.
net decrease and that
I
should be
think in your
negotiated.
marketing of the lots, you can tell whoever's interested in the lot that, you know, we've got to provide adequate stormwater, okay? So they don't go in and go all the while as far as.
So just put the slide in place.
So just a note will be added to the subdivision plans for no net increase and a decrease for stormwater runoff for all new development associated with the new lots, 2A, 3A, and for the holdings of the applicant.
So,
Sure.
can I have a question, please?
Sure.
So
Quick.
the lot number. This existing lot. Right? We're not, you referred to that lot as the third lot, that's what we have, right? So, yeah, the commitment that you're after is that this doesn't have to be approved because it's not to be touched. Right.
But any runoff from that
New
site.
development.
Right. It's a
New
development,
development.
yeah, new development, right? And, but we have the right to use this asset to help mitigate.
Yes. Well, I think most of the mitigation will be right here.
Hey,
Here.
let the engineers be engineers.
Good point, Greg, thanks.
The second time we played it.
I can't help myself.
Here, one.
Yes, I didn't want to limit
Okay.
it to development.
What
only
what
occurring in
other
the new lot.
conditions we have, Lance, that we talked about?
You had referenced the NRI evaluations
Yep.
to be completed. The NRI evaluation of the two lots is to be completed and identified on
Part of site plan
as part of a
review.
site plan application for either of the two lots.
I'd sort of like to have it on the final plan, of the plan, subdivision plan.
No, because if they go, I mean,
If there's any NRI assets on that plan as shown, whether it be trees, steep slopes, that should be shown on the subdivision.
So you're saying you want the subdivision plan to be revised to identify all NRI items.
Assets or.
Right,
and scenic
and
view
then
shed.
to be shown on the plans prior to signature.
So Chuck, what's driving that?
We have a requirement that all natural resource assets be shown on subdivision plans. It's something that we've
The code.
started.
In the
Yeah.
code, it's the code, right?
The code. And so there's gonna be an identical condition next that says the same thing, but for scenic view shed overlay. Yes, Lance?
Again, so. for
Well, with
I'll
that, it's
do
just
one
a
thing at
statement,
time.
it's just the whole
That's just a
property,
statement on the
the whole properties of the scenic view should have. So that just,
Well,
that's
is
just a
it-
statement.
Is it once it's subdivided?
Subdivision should be,
I mean,
we haven't moved.
is
along.
this gonna be in the scenic view?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, it goes all the way up into Morocco.
Okay.
No, the purple area.
I haven't looked at it.
The purple, the infamous purple area.
I know the purple area.
Oh, yeah.
So that was 6, so then 7, let me find my note. I had, a note was to be added to the plan stating that the site, properties in question, lots 1A, 3, 2A and 3A are located within the town of Canandaigua scenic view shed. And that would be a note.
Just a note.
You know?
Yep.
Comma, and subject to the requirements of the scenic view shed overlay district.
Hey Chuck, Lawrence Cook, how about a constraint driveway? on over the-
Lawrence, there's a motion on the floor, so we can't discuss anything right now. I do promise to get back to you. Once we finish up with the motion, okay? If you're brief, hang on, stand by. Okay, conditions.
So then, 8 was the subdivision plan is to be revised so as to not include the center line of Vinyl Linda Drive as part of lot 1A property.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
Wow, remember that time when Mark asked about that?
That was a long time ago.
All right, number 9,
It's Bob.
That was
It's
fine.
always us.
you mentioned something about the Westbrook property, the other lands of Westbrook to be clarified in the plans.
Yeah,
It
the
says-
property to the west.
Yeah, it's just a term, it's just a label of it, right?
Yep.
I'll clarify once I have the plans from me and I can designate
Now we're
specifically
formally
what it
owned
is.
by Corey.
I believe it was just to identify the proper name of the lands. Those were the, oh, I have one more. And then 10 is your right away, the filed right away / deed information for Annalena Drive. And legal access for all the properties is to be provided to the town attorney.
For his
For his review and approval and, you know, highlighted, because I think it's this, that.
But basically, your, whatever the designation that grants everybody access over Annalena Drive is to be provided to the town.
But it's just those 3 lots.
I think I may misunderstand what you're saying. What I think we were talking about was there's some agreement over on the drive that provides access to other lots. Whatever that agreement is, that was gonna be provided to the town attorney.
Well, so prove to me that, so I can tell Chuck, I'm certain I've seen that these 3 lots.
All you want to see is see it. My question is, do I pull every lot up there?
No.
No,
She
no.
doesn't know.
Should be one document.
No, I bet it's in each deed.
It would
So,
be,
so show me the one that covers this, and then while you're at it,
Future.
if you have any other subdivision applications that are relevant to right of ways on Linda Drive, you might want to pull those at the same time.
I need to specify that just for those 3
Just
lots.
say the right of way.
Wait, yeah, right, thank you. Those were the 10 that I had identified. Over,
Along with the 4.
along, yeah, so it's a total of 10 that I have right. Which-
Individual site plan for each lot.
No, shall be a plan.
Yes.
Yeah.
So that's 11.
now. So a note shall be added to the subdivision plan stating that individual site plan approval will be required for lots 2A and 3A.
Okay. We got 10 conditions, we got
No, we've got
11.
11 conditions.
And I want to just,
And how will the site is-
Stick around long enough, you'll have 4.
so there's a 5 structure maximum before something has to happen. We don't know.
Me,
We're gonna leave that, it's fire code issue.
of my
Yeah.
bigger.
According to the code enforcement officer's email, it made it sound as if the 2 lots that are before you today are 2 of the lots that potentially contain a structure, which will come to you in the form of a site plan application. And then future applications that may become before you, possibly a 2-lot subdivision would also include 2 separate structures as part of a site plan application. My understanding based on that, that's 4 structures. At a time of a 5th structure, which I think the town has defined what a structure is.
Yes.
That 5th structure would trigger a review by the code enforcement officer, and I believe you mentioned the town engineer and the town planning board, obviously at that point in time, a potential need to do to meet that fire code, the width of the road and improvements.
Okay,
In terms of findings, I'm gonna recommend that the motion to adopt this resolution include a direction to John and Lance to produce findings, a summary of the findings you made.
oh, earlier than the 174.15.
For
Yeah.
174.
Okay. All right, I don't think we actually got a motion yet.
I don't
What are the conditions? Mr. Cook, I will give you a minute.
Yeah,
Three now.
yes, Chuck, thank you. I would like a condition in there that says that these 2 lots, 2A and 3A, the driveways would not exit onto Trent Return for a safety reason, because you could have some pretty bad accidents. These lots should be accessed from the west or the north.
So I think there was a concern you brought up in one of your bits of correspondence about having the driveways on the curve. Is that what you're saying?
That's right. The
Okay.
previous drawings showed driveways exiting right onto the curve for the providing access to these 2 lots.
Okay.
Yeah, that'll be a development.
Okay, I think MRB's comments, you had asked for the location of the driveways for the 2 lots, is that correct? Lance?
It's typical that we would
Yeah.
get something that shows that they have adequate site
All right,
distance.
and it's not shown currently.
I don't believe,
Or is it
this
listed?
is, no, they do, I think,
There, she should be. on
I think.
Yeah,
I think
okay, that's-
Those are,
she's
those
great.
are, no, those
Those are
are,
the points.
those are.
Just to be clear, no driveways are being approved right now.
Correct.
Well, we do require in our subdivision. that
So
proposed
subdivision
access,
requires
access
to document
can
that
be
you can
site
grant access,
distance.
which you can. It would just be a no.
There's your 12th condition.
There's your 12th
Well,
condition.
no, it's already conditioned.
Yeah, it's because it's.
I has a review letter.
11, back to 11.
That was in the.
You're good.
Okay, and it hopefully be away from the curve as much as possible. Possibly to the north.
I mean, I can show it.
Just to be clear, the site distances that would be shown on here are just a document, they can get the driveway on there that meets it. The location of such driveway will come to you in the form of a site plan application.
Yep.
At the time one's made for the
Realize that.
property. So that driveway location can be then relocated at that issue.
Just belts and
This is
suspenders.
just a document that they have ability to get access.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Cook. And that being said, I will entertain a motion for the single stage subdivision.
I will move that the planning board approve CPN 22049 subdivision plans with the 11 conditions.
11.
11.
You win it.
Which I don't know.
I'll second that.
That was Mark.
Before you vote, just note that these edits will also include updating your findings that are before you, as we've received comments from agencies that I have to document and put in there. There's certain notes that were discussed tonight that I have to put in there, and obviously I gotta add in the findings of your review of section 174-15. So
Okay.
this also includes those.
John, are you clear? Do you understand where we're at?
Similar to what
Okay.
Kelly reviewed the next.
Okay.
When they went through.
All right, I got a motion and a second. Scott made the motion, Mark made the second. Further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Okay. See you in 2 weeks.
Yep.
Talk to the CEO. About those structures. I want to get through this again. All right, thanks. Thanks, Anthony.
Thank you.
All right.
We got some work to do.
Do I have a motion to approve the minutes from July 26th?
So moved.
Seconded.
Motion second, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
What?
Aye.
Thank you.
I'm like a yawn. Ah.
There's no surety releases or letters of credit,
Not this month. Well,
Okay.
not this week.
referrals from the town board. The subdivision, proposed subdivision regarding number of lots on a private road, that was revised.
I think that Doug said he made a motion, an executive, he has the authority to put it on the September public hearing. Can you say that in order?
Okay. Yeah, I
With
just
some
assumed that
changes.
based on the original hearing where they got a lot of pushback, that they amended the, so it doesn't have to go through a detailed review anymore, it just goes back
It
to
is, yeah, I
the
believe.
town board.
Right, for public hearing in
And that'll
October.
happen in September.
Set the public hearing in September for October.
Okay. So that's where that stands. CBA, nothing from them. CEO, we did hear from Chris Jensen on the fire issue, comprehensive plan. Okay, and report. Shauna has been diligently working on our annual report and has a draft and some two delinquent people, me being one.
I got chairman.
You got Mark got his. I don't know what time.
I think Chuck
Four.
5:45.
need to help, and I have not provided that help.
Did you provide a draft of what you had so far?
Yeah, I gave you the details.
Lance is apologizing and he already did it.
Oh, no, I did,
No, I'm
I did the
No, he
details,
did
there's
the
parts, but
hard work. He
I
didn't.
need
I
the
know, but he's
details to
still
see approved before I can do
apologizing
the
for
other
it.
part.
I'll have it this week.
I was gonna send you an email on that, but so far as it relates to the site design, we were doing edits to the details, the spec sheets of a number of items on there, of which includes some existing ones, and then we've added in some thoughts and forms related to like dedication, checklists, that we've used elsewhere that we talked about. So those details were forwarded to the highway superintendent and to you. And then I think they included Sean and Chris, I don't recall. Just so that you guys can begin your review and make sure that I'm on par with what we discussed before I do the remaining edits, which is the report that would accommodate some of that language.
Okay. That's, yeah, one part of my task. The other part is, if you recall, I suggested, probably will put into my paragraph, a suggestion that we have a highway master plan and a sidewalk master plan, so that we can figure out where we have sidewalks, where we want them, and that will help us in terms of complete streets, which is what the primary focus of my task was, to make sure that we have nothing hindering or some way promote complete streets and developments moving forward. Okay, so I will get that. What I'll do is I'll take your draft and I'll just add to it.
Okay,
And any changes I want to make. And if you have marks,
I'll put marks in. I will send it
okay,
back
send
to
it back,
you.
and that's the one I'll.
Yep, and then you use that one.
Okay, good. Thank you, everyone, for doing that. I think regarding our projects, it didn't, necessarily result in new legislation or new ordinances, but I think each one of us will have to monitor anything that happens regarding what we're looking at moving forward. So you've sort of taken on or inherited that topic, and I would ask that you, if it's EV stations or if it's 5G, anything that you hear or come up with, if it's something that's pertinent, please bring it to our attention. And if it gets to the point that we should recommend something to the ordinance committee, I know Bob's working diligently, and he made an excellent presentation to the ordinance committee yesterday regarding the solar. There were some suggestions made, and I see he put out a second draft today, so I haven't had a chance to read it, but at least that is moving through the
Yes.
ordinance committee. I think it is the priority topic that we want to see move forward. The other ones are things that I think we want to just stay on top of. All right. Okay, I think we're looking forward to 2 weeks, and it is Wednesday, the 24th.
Oh, all right. I
Folks.
have to tell myself that.
And we listed the, and you're gonna put the solar project sketch plans?
I already have. I have an
Okay.
updated agenda. Yeah, the solar projects will be coming in for sketch plan review. They both were recommended, basically, they're both on prime ag land, so it was a recommendation that they not move forward.
Recommendation by who?
The ag,
Was that in writing?
yeah, I've got it, yeah.
And we've got like the section of the ag plan that says this is prime.
I'll show you their report. so
Give me a
you can
call.
see it. Yeah, I want you to take a look at it.
So the
So
reason
for
we're still
solar
looking at it is just courtesy?
Wait, it's sketch plan, did you say?
It's
fine.
sketch. They're coming
Ah.
for sketch, because that was what we had said to them at PRC, please go to ag.
Ag,
Ag has reviewed it, now they want to come and do a presentation.
ag has determined that it is on valuable,
Valuable active prime.
Which-
farmland,
They have the right to
but they can. still
try and
come.
persuade you.
Yeah, they're gonna,
Maybe they've got some information that you don't know that.
do we have discretion if it's determined that it's on private? It sounds sort of like that once that determination is made.
No,
full stop,
there's no,
full stop.
no, you have a lot of flexibility. We worded that very carefully when this came up, because there's a lot of definitions of valuable for agriculture. It may be graded prime, but what if I've got a 500-acre farm of all prime agricultural land and I can't make ends meet? And putting 100 acres of that into solar farms will let me keep that farm in the 400. Well, that's something the planning board has to make a determination as to what valuable is. It's grades. I mean, state ag department can just tell you, yep, this is, graded 69.246. Great, but this is a discretionary task that the planning board has to evaluate the circumstances evaluate the documentary evidence and the recommendations of the ag committee, so you can come to the right decision.
I
Otherwise, Sean.
think with that, Chris, we need to hear from the landowner on those.
Exactly, Bob, exactly.
Mhm.
Well, I think at the same time, I mean, if we're gonna open that discussion and rely on the input of the rest of our committees, then we've got to take them all. I voted against 2 plans last session because the committees that were asked to give input, we felt that another committee passed it and variance, and because that was a rubber stamp. So how is that any different than what we're talking about right now? So
Sorry about variances.
Variance was granted for an
variances
application.
continue to get granted on conditions that we state shouldn't meet, whether it's setbacks from creeks and things along those lines. And part of the discussion for passing those at the planning board as well, zoning board of appeals passed it, so it must have been right effectively. I'm paraphrasing. And here now we're going back and we're saying, okay, it's our purvey to look at ag and say, oh geez, well, maybe ag got it wrong.
No, excuse me.
Or there's higher
Ag,
value.
it's not the ag committee's decision whether or not that special use permit condition is met or not. We could have just put, if it's a nice farm, if it's a farm listed in the agricultural protection land, you can't do a special use permit. But that doesn't give the flexibility to take into consideration circumstances. The agricultural committee can give you advice on what they think about the land, what it's graded, where it appears in our agricultural protection plan. But the only entity in the town of Canandaigua who can make decisions on the conditions in the existing special use permit is the planning board, so for you and Bob. It's not somebody else's decision.
It's like the
That's
county
it.
referrals.
It's like a county referral.
Elimination.
It's, you need to make your decisions with all the facts. And 99% of the time, you're gonna agree with exactly what the agricultural committee says.
No,
Is my guess. That's my guess. Maybe not.
in
But
practice, we're not.
That's the planning board's decision, not the ag committee's decision. They
You're
give you
misunderstanding what I'm
information.
saying. I mean, what I'm stating is that because zoning board of appeals issued a variance, the opinion was that it must have been okay. So therefore, the planning board should pass it.
I think it's apples and oranges, is because the ag committee is saying, here's our feedback. But they're
Yeah.
not making any decisions about anything. They're just providing, we reviewed material, and am I representing it accurately? Just
That's
checking
exactly
in.
my point. And Mark,
Or
I
the
think,
ZBA is making decisions related to.
We're not
the
but
variance
they're making
request.
decisions related to
Right.
the variance. You're making decisions relating to site plan. And you're dead right, Mark. Just because there's a variance doesn't mean that they've addressed all the site plan issues. To be very clear, the zoning board is not rubber stamping stuff. They agonize, they debate, they discuss, they deliberate. But they're not, but frequently they say, well, that's a planning board issue. They're not talking about drainage. They're not talking about traffic. They're discussing the issues for variance. So I agree with you. If, just because an application gets a variance, that doesn't mean you need to grant site plan approval. They're discussing very different issues than the planning board.
We talked about flipping things and other municipalities where applications go to planning board first.
Try it.
Does
I-
it work? Because they're looking at
It
something in
makes sense
a
to me.
vacuum.
It makes sense to me. Especially since when a variance is granted, it's usually conditioned that no changes be made to the plan.
Absolutely.
I would suggest we try it.
I think we
I
should.
think because of that condition that we applied to just about all variances, it may work. I think we tried 12 years ago and it was a disaster. I've been involved with other towns where we tried it and it was a disaster, but I think it's worth it now, just based on the way our reviews are set up. Lance, do you have?
Yeah, well, as part, I mentioned that we have communities that, you know, the ZB won't make a decision without referring it, but I think procedurally that delays applications, requires it to go before the ZBA multiple times, which may not require, but here we have a PRC that does a lot of it, so I felt like if it was a PRC decision to say this is going to be a site plan and a ZBA application, therefore, let's send it to the PB, which comes before the ZBA to get a recommendation in order then to proceed to the ZBA. You'll then have planning board input prior to that ZBA making the decision, whatever that decision may be at their board meeting. You won't delay the application because procedurally, planning board then ZBA, it's the PRC decision that helps initiate
So then the
that process.
planning board approval would be conditional upon them getting the
What?
variance.
You wanna be-
You're talking
I'm
about
thinking-
two planning
Yeah,
board
I'm
meetings.
thinking
You
that
see it
that
twice.
first planning board meeting is simply a recommendation to the
Oh, okay.
ZBA.
No, I think you could do, I mean,
Depending on what
where
it
relevant.
was.
you could do one planning board meeting condition upon
ZBA approval.
if you get a variance.
Does that put pressure on the ZBA to approve it?
Absolutely not. I don't
Similar
think
to,
so.
you know, similar to what Mark's saying, that some, you know,
No, I think it gives them more information to
So-
base their decision on.
Yeah.
The only thing is that we run into a number of,
Pressure.
we won't be able to be consistent with that, because we have a number of
It's gonna
applications that
be-
gotta go to the county.
Oh, yeah,
And then so
Oh,
that first planning board
timing.
meeting, you're not gonna have all the data. But you could essentially just be saying, hey, we're just reviewing this for recommendation, sketch plan.
Almost
right?
like sketch plan,
Yeah.
yes.
Here you go, ZBA meets the following week, they have the ag committee, they have environmental conservation board committee, and they have planning board recommendation on this particular site plan issue. Too close to the stream, that's things to consider that maybe they don't have a great understanding about what the planning board does.
Right.
so then we're gonna, we, the planning board, is gonna discuss it 2 times, 2 meetings.
You would have it
Yes.
under like a sketch plan / recommendation, and then only if the
why
ZBA.
bother?
Because
Because that-
protocol, you won't, that first meeting of the month, we don't even see new applications. Your requirements don't allow it,
Oh,
so that can't happen anyway
Well,
for
we would
your
have to
current
change
process.
that process.
Right.
There would be multiple processes.
Second
that
reason
would-
is that some of these applications that I think we're talking about require county referral. You might not have county recommendation back by that first meeting of the month, so now you're prolonging the decision-making process. Besides, I guess.
I guess the reason, I know why. Because the zoning board is not gonna be bound by a site or by an approval. You're talking about getting approvals up front, and then we've wasted a lot of time and energy and the planning
Possibly.
board's time.
And you have
Because
full
an application
agendas.
is dead on arrival or dead after arrival, the planning board says, we spent 2 hours talking about this, here's your approval, go get a variance. And the
They
zoning
don't
board
get
says, absolutely not. Then
Then
we
it's
wasted
over.
time, that's why.
It's possible, I was on, in Soda's Point, I was on the planning board,
Mhm.
and it was, the zoning board actually appreciated the input from the planning board. They didn't always
Follow it.
follow, but they wanted some of that background and some of our thoughts, and so that, it did work. So I
Yeah.
don't know if they still do. 5 years ago, they did,
Yeah,
so.
something to think about.
Well, okay, we're not gonna come to a conclusion, anything else, you have one
Oh,
announcement?
John has announced his retirement at the end of December.
No.
No.
Do we?
I know.
We don't accept
No,
it.
we
do
did not
Oh,
accept
no,
it.
no.
John, actually,
Sorry, John.
I'd like to sign those.
John. Oh,
Right?
Yay.
That's how.
I say we vote. I say we vote.
Thank you, John.
thank
You're
you.
really gonna be irreplaceable.
Yeah.
We'll try.
True. I mean,
Got big shoes to fill, no
1,000,000,000%.
doubt about it.
Oh, my gosh.
Put an ad in the paper.
Yeah,
Yeah.
right.
It's
Nobody
just
reads it.
somebody will come show up.
What is the John Robitello? Tough standards. Okay, anything else you might have?
I think that's-
Um,
Oh,
I'm away on vacation next week, but I'm gonna provide to you guys, based on what I'm seeing here under August 24th, we have potentially 4 applications. So I'm gonna
Yes.
draft up the resolutions, the findings as I normally would, send it to you in draft form like I normally would, except you're gonna get it a week ahead of time. Obviously, there's things that will be occurring the week that I'm gone, i.e. ZBA meeting,
Yeah.
but I can update them upon return, but I don't feel, I'd rather get it done myself as opposed to rely on somebody else, just to do it.
I heard Matt's pretty good.
Yeah.
Most certainly.
That's why Matt's here tonight,
Most
right?
certainly can do it.
And
There's
Mark
anything
will
updated,
not
he
be
can
at the
listen.
next meeting. Okay,
Great.
Okay.
so everybody else will be here.
We're-
We'll have at least four.
We're set for the training. We're the group,
Oh, that's September.
September, whatever.
Yeah, you're,
We're good. Okay. Just show up at whatever 9 o'clock.
well, we'll let you know, we're registering everybody by a certain date.
So,
We'll let-
What clerk will help you have in the development?
We have
So use the
short
chairs.
staffed right now,
Mhm.
but doing a lot of work myself right now.
So Kelly's one?
Kelly is
Really?
gonna be gone probably by, most likely by the end or beginning of September. Kim is gonna step in and help me out 10 hours a week. Thank God.
Oh,
Good.
and Ally is,
Ally is just strictly development office or just permits.
oh,
Code,
Yeah.
code
CEO.
comments.
Yes.
I thought
Yeah,
Chris.
yeah,
okay.
yeah.
All right, so we know who to contact when, okay.
Yeah.
So I guess, we were talking about the training, Kelly or Ally is working on.
Yeah, Ally
Training
is,
hours?
yeah, Ally, we're just bear with us. We're
Okay. All right, well, we'll get to the year, we haven't done it. All right, have a motion.
I'll make a motion to adjourn at 7:46.
I'll
Okay.
second.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Bye,
Hey,
Bob.
hey, Lance.